Okay, good morning and welcome to our webinar, SAP Archiving in Microsoft Azure. I just wait a minute because people are all also joining now. But I can start with some organizational details. First of all, if you can hear me, please raise the little hand on your panel so that I know that you can hear me, and I think that you can also see me. Perfect. People are busy clicking. Thank you very much. You will be muted during the webinar, but of course you are welcome to ask your questions in the question field or in the chat. Any questions that we can't answer live today in this webinar will be answered via mail after our session, so feel free. During the webinar, Benny and me will turn off our cameras so that you can focus 100% on the presentation. And yeah, that's it about organizational details. Then let's start. We are talking about a very exciting topic today, and we are delighted that you are joining us. So thank you. I'm Christina Schaaf from the KGS marketing team. I'm happy that my colleague Benny Schröder joins me in this webinar today. So Benny, please say a few words about yourself.
Yeah, hello and good morning from my side. Yeah, I'm Benjamin Schröder, 41 years old, and I joined KGS more than 10 years ago. Today I'm responsible for the technical teams, which are support and professional services on the one hand, and on the other hand, R&D and DevOps QA. Yeah, and I'm also pleased to join this webinar today and tell you a little bit about our solution running in Azure and using Azure services.
Thank you, Benny. Then let's have a quick look at the agenda. First of all, I will tell you some facts about KGS and our approach. Next, Benny will start with the main part and present our solution, TIA, and especially TIA on Azure. After that, he will show you some case studies from our latest projects, and afterwards we will conclude with a quick Q&A session. Now I will turn off my camera and see you later. So then let's start with a few facts about KGS. KGS is located in Neu-Isenburg near Frankfurt am Main. We have been successful in the market for over 20 years now. KGS is a small company with about 50 employees, but very powerful with a very focused approach. Means we are real experts in our special field. We are SAP certification partner, and we are always up to date with latest developments. For example, we were the first SAP certified CMES provider worldwide, so this was a big step for KGS. In general, we manage a large number of replacement projects, and we have a very, very strong consulting team. Of course, we are very proud of our references. We have implemented our solution TIA with numerous big players, but today we are also very successful with SEMEs. And of course, you can find all our references on our website if you want to get more in detail. Okay, so a quick overview about KGS, but I think the main part is more interesting for you today. So take a look at our website. And to dive into the topic, we have prepared a short survey. So I will share the survey now. And the question for you is, do you already apply SAP processes to Microsoft Azure? You can choose between yes and planning and no. So please pick your answer. Nice, I see that some of you are already answering, but I just wait a moment to give everyone the chance to answer. Okay, then I close the survey and will share with you the results. And I would say okay, very exciting. And Benny, I think this is your sign to comment and start with the main part.
Yeah, thanks. Definitely interesting, as the majority is running already or in plan. So I think that's quite logical to also have a look on archiving solutions then when you're already running your SAP processes or systems on Azure. And yeah, so I'm quite happy to tell you a little bit more about this today, and that it's definitely possible and already well approved and best practices available for those topics. So so welcome again. I'm quite pleased to be able to tell you a little bit about the SAP archiving topic in Azure today. From my opinion, TIA on Azure, it has a very well fit for cost-efficient, high-performance, and also legally compliant archiving, which is quite important, of course. And yeah, before we get to the topic of TIA on Azure, let's start with a few slides on our view of the lean archiving itself. So what you can see on this slide shows you like a simplified 3-layer model. And this is consisting of the application layer at the top, the middleware layer in between, and the storage layer for persisting data. On the application layer, of course, we find a number of applications that we call the so-called leading applications. First and foremost, SAP. All the necessary data and all the relationships to documents and DMS functionalities in the broadest sense are mapped in the application layer. Let's have a look on the storage layer. Well, it's designed for the persistence of documents over a period of time. And this is suitable for small, but also to very large volumes. So to enable long-term archiving from SAP or other applications, there's a layer needed in between that connects the two layers via interfaces. And that's what we call the middleware layer. And middleware sounds like small and lean, and ultimately it is actually from our point of view. So our solution sees itself like a connector, or as a connector between SAP on the one hand, or SharePoint, for example, and any storage on the other. So TIA, we call our product solution TIA, the Intelligent Archive. So let's take a closer look at TIA. So we jump into the eye of TIA, and TIA in the current product line, we call it TIA Core. It consists of services architecture and is subject to the principle of loose coupling of those services. There are different implementations for each services in place, which can be used via configuration. For example, to the content servers, which can be used via configuration. The content service is used to connect the storage systems, for example, S3-based object storages on AWS or on-premise, or any file system-based storage system, or of course Azure Container Storage or blob storage, which we'll follow on. TIA itself can be deployed as containers, which is quite important in the cloud. For example, like everyone might know Docker, and we'll follow up on this as well. And this is particularly interesting for the cloud. Of course, more on this in a moment. TIA is also available for all three existing SAP interface, which you can see on the left. And it is regularly certified. So this means CMIS, Archive Link, and ILM interfaces are used from SAP from the several product lines: S4, public cloud, ERP, on-premise, and cloud, private cloud deployments whatsoever. Yeah, and when we talk about modern software deployment in the cloud, we have to talk about containers. Containers virtualization is a particularly resource-efficient method of operating applications. A container provides everything that is necessary for operation. And a container usually takes on a defined task. They are also the standard for all agile types of provisioning, and the keyword is DevOps at this. Yeah, based on cloud native standards, they can be used in a large number of different variants. One of the best known environments for orchestrating containers is Kubernetes, of course. But it can also be like a little bit easier. If you look again at SAP interfaces, CMIS is the tool of choice for the cloud. So CMIS is offered on the BTP as a service for archiving for very good reasons, in our opinion. Yeah, however, containers are not only suitable for deployment in the cloud, but also for operating on your own hardware, on-premise hardware. This is quite interesting for you. The technology enables, yeah, like maximum efficiency and also like flexibility through scaling. Demand-oriented use of resources is quite essential in the cloud. Keyword, pay as you go. The price metrics we see in the cloud are always based on consumption, from CPU seconds to the number of accesses or requests. And preparing applications for peak loads in the cloud is not only much easier, which running on containers, but this is basis. It's only available in real time when it is actually needed. So this saves money in the end, and this is quite important. We compare the scaling of our archive software like a pop-up tent. So that's why we call it a pop-up archive at the end. So all the archive solutions pop up in real time when needed, and they'll vanish like when not unneeded anymore. So this is like a little bit heads up on the topic. And now let's take a deeper look on TR and Azure in particular. So why Azure? Yeah, well, we think that Azure offers all the necessary services for high performance, but also secure operation of an archive. And let's take a look at the relevant services here. With Azure Kubernetes Service, Microsoft offers Kubernetes as a service, a fully managed Kubernetes cluster. So if you want to keep things a little bit simpler and don't need all the possibilities of Kubernetes, the Azure Container App Services might be a good alternative and lightweighted alternative to AKS. Both are able to run containers, so the application can be managed by one of those services. And the third layer, the storage layer, for this we see the Azure Blob Storage service, which is quite ideally suited as managed object storage. Everything is provided from is also provided for monitoring the Azure services with Azure Monitoring Services. And last but not least, services such as Azure Private Link round off the whole thing for establishing secure connections between those. So these are the main services we see in our context. Of course, there are more and others which might be interesting in your particular use cases or in your setups, but to make it efficient, we concentrate on those today. And we see a lot of benefits for you there running those services or the use case of archiving, SAP archiving in particular on Azure. And I'm quite sure you already heard many of these points when using cloud services in general, and so they apply here too. So you can focus on the core business through the use of managed services. That's a fact, of course, yeah. As mentioned, scalability and almost unlimited resources are in place. You see like a high level of security and compliance throughout best practices in the market. And of course, you have like a guaranteed high availability, about 99+%, which is quite attractive. And this is key also for running those use cases. Last but not least, we also see like a strong penetration and thus experience in the use of Azure in the operating of SAP systems and the workflows. I think this might come from like a historical partnership, Microsoft with SAP, the other way around. Well, and also we see it especially in the DACH market and the German-speaking market, that there is like a strong penetration of Microsoft. Let's again have a look on the storage, which is quite crucial in this whole setup, as this addresses those mentioned features which are quite important for the legal and compliant part. Yeah, from time to time, still we are asked whether legally compliant archiving in the cloud is even possible. And yeah, we and many of our customers are of the opinion that yes, it is, of course, possible, and the storage plays a decisive role in this. So yeah, let's take a look on the features, on the benefits of Azure Blob Storage service. Again, we have like a guaranteed availability, high availability, and it's also broad available over the various regions of Azure. It's a fully managed storage environment, which is suitable for petabytes of data. So it's really scaling out. And up to you, you could run it redundant, which means you can have the data in several regions, over regions, geo-redundant or locally redundant, which is quite interesting also and important for disaster recovery reasons. It's really performing. So the choice of can choose between two different levels of performance. So like hot and cold storage levels, and quite important in Azure calls it like immutability, which is better known as like a worm functionality. Write once, read many is quite essential feature in this place. This is the way how we guarantee the immutability over time, which is also called retention periods, but not only retention periods, but also like legal hold, which is important for the ILM interface. So with that features in place, the documents are not changeable over time. They're like locked. And last but not least, it's secure, so you can access via keys in private endpoints. So there's no attack in between options. So ultimately, we believe it's a perfect match for the purpose of SAP archiving with TIA. And this is for all existing interfaces, of course, Archive Link, ILM, and CMS. So we support all the interfaces for the usage of Azure Blob Storage. So what's the bottom line? Yeah, we think middleware between SAP and storage is quite lean, it's smart, and it fits your needs of SAP archiving. So when you're running the majority of your processes with SAP with SAP workflows, BTP workflows, it's more like archiving than ECM, DMS functionalities you need. With that, we think a minimal footprint in the cloud is crucial, and it saves costs at the end. So unnecessary costs means you just use what you really need, which is the archiving part of ECM. It's legally compliant. As we've seen, together with TIA and the storage system, we have like the retention management in place, you have legal holds, and we have also like encryption feature on the application level and also on the storage level. So data can be encrypted before it is placed on the storage. And we also see like an optimal use of Azure services in this context, like AKS, storage, container apps, monitoring. So everything is in place for our use cases. So yeah, at the end, particularly suitable for Azure and cloud, but not also like on-premise, running containers on-premise. We also have the same features in the product. Storage might be a different one. So let's have like an example architecture for this. So if you bring the services into a simplified diagram, this could look as follows. The containers are provided by us via a personalized and protected so-called container registry. You see on the left side. AKS is the runtime environment for the containers, including our TIA core container. And SAP archives via the CMS interface in this example. That's why, or since the CMS also allows you to archive and search for metadata on documents, that's the reason we need a database in this. So we see the Azure SQL Server on the right. However, no database is required for archive link and ILM use cases. And as I said, the service can also be exchanged individually. So based on configuration in TIA Core, for example, you can also use Prometheus or Grafana for monitoring, or FluentD, Elastic for logging. So it's not mandatory to use all those Azure-based services, but others, as you can operate or prefer in your personal setup or project. Yeah, that was like the main part of our demo. We also brought you some two use cases, case studies of 2 implemented projects we did. Both differ in the way they use Azure services. So let's have a look. So the first customer, they had those goals, project goals. So let's have a look at the project goals. And the main goal was to completely replace the OpenText environment they've been running for many years. And the aim was to achieve process optimization and streamlining with that. Of course, migration of the data from the OpenText, the old archive system, is quite crucial, and that's what we can solve with TIA migration tool. And the last project goal was like optimization of access and cost to the cloud storage. Sorry. So the challenges we figured out, they've been like complex OpenText architecture and archive environment. They did a lot of in-house developments in SAP. I think they're not the only one, honestly. And from that, we also saw a shadow IT, which means processes that are used as workarounds by end users without documentation and knowledge carriers. So they decided to use Azure Blob Storage, but also wanted to keep data on premises for better access speed, and cost reasons. So the results, yeah. At the end, we achieved a complete document and data migration approved by the customer and also like auditors, thanks to TIA migration. So if you're interested on TIA migration, just don't hesitate to give us a call and we'll show you the product. As mentioned, we realized a double storage, so to say. So on the one hand, we temporarily store the documents on premises, on a on-premise storage system, and also like permanently on Azure Blob Storage. So for that, we use our product, the TIA Write Cache, to realize that. And with TIA Write Cache, you can also like configure the way of accessing those two storage systems. The read access is primarily from the on-premise environment, which is cost optimization, because every read access or every request to the cloud would also cost something. But the data is still there, and so we store the on-premise temporarily for a period of time, I don't know, 3 to 6 months. After that, normally the files on-premise are deleted, but still on the long-term archiving system or the long-time storage system Azure Container. And thanks to the close collaboration, the customer has a complete picture and can make independent and reliable statements about the archive after we did the project. And also part of the shadow IT, well, if uncovered, was analyzed and integrated into the TIA world. Yeah, to see this on an architectural view, it's mainly on-premise, but hybrid in the sense of using the cloud storage. So what we see here, as mentioned, we have a system which uses Archive Link, which addresses a load balancer, and the load balancer addresses those cache servers. And at the end, also our product, TIA Core, TIA Content Server, for storing it twice on a NetApp, like mentioned, temporarily and long-term on the Azure Cloud Storage. Second case study, totally different goals, but quite interesting as well. And let's have a look on this project. So the main goals was, and this was a strategic decision, the use of Azure. They had a very good contract with Azure, and they wanted to run workflows and workloads on Azure. So creating of several central archives for 10+ productive systems, SAP systems, high available and scalable storage, mapping of different retention periods, and also the implementation and use of the CMS interface. So these were the main goals. Of course, with goals comes challenges. We also needed to connect some external non-SAP applications via CMS. The enrichment of documents with free metadata, compatible access via CMS and Archive Link to the same documents from the same content repository. And last but not least, the use of SAP CPI for archiving via CMS. The background was like an invoice workflow they are running. So these are the challenges, or have been. And again, we've had some cool results with this project. Well, we developed a central archive on Azure infrastructure. That's the basis. Like, we connected to the Azure Blob Storage, geo-redundant, and mapping of retention times per content repository, including immutability feature. So the retention periods can be done configured on the repository level individually. For archive link, for CMS, and with ILM, of course, it's propagated by the interface. We realized the use of different storage containers per subcontractor for simple internal billing. So in this case, the company is running archiving as an internal service. So it's like a profit center, and to have those internal billing simplified, we set up like this. We added value through the implementation of evaluation instances and statistics with the help of Elasticsearch in Kibana. So all the metadata, all the auditing protocol data are stored in the Elasticsearch database. In this case, instead of running SQL servers or others. With the Kibana project, it's possible to set up individual dashboards on those data, and this makes it quite interesting and important for the customer, to have instance statistics on this data. And last but not least, we also successfully implemented the CMS interface for archiving from the S4, but also SAP CPI and other non-SAP applications. Again, like an overview, now we are more in the cloud in an Azure subscription here. So this was a tenant from the customer in his own subscription. We see SAP S4 in the cloud. We see the CPI in the cloud running CMS to TIA Core application, container storage, and the mentioned Elasticsearch and Kibana for storing metadata, but also protocoling. But also we see an on-premise access via archive link to the cloud service. And this is also quite, it's completely CMIS compatible archiving. So meaning if it doesn't matter if it's stored via CMIS or archive link, the same data is accessible. So that's important. So yeah, that's it for today. And I think we're good in time to have some more questions at the end. Hopefully there are some. Christina.
There are. Benny, please turn on your camera again so that I can, so me and our participants can see you again. First of all, thanks for the exciting insights, Benny. We have received some questions, of course, and let's start. I'll pick out a few for you. First question is, can I also archive documents from other applications, for example, Teams or SharePoint?
Yes, you can. We also realized connector for SharePoint in the past couple of months. If you are interested on details on that, I would recommend to have a follow-up session individually so we can show the solution. But it's also based on the same products, and it's using the CMS interface, which is quite common or has the best fit for the cloud. So yes, it's possible. That's the short answer. And if you're interested on more details, give us a call.
And as a little note, in the next 2 or 3 months, there will be a webinar about this. So stay tuned. And the next question I pick, how can data be migrated and how long does such a project usually take?
Yeah, as mentioned, we do migrations in quite every project we are having as we replace older systems. For that, we are running our product TIA migration, which is accessing the old archives in the same way SAP is doing. It's using the interfaces. So we don't change anything from the source archive. We read the whole content, we read it, and we write it to the destination archive, TIA Core. And even that, we're not changing anything in SAP, which is quite important. So SAP is not even recognizing that the archive system has changed at the end. So how long does it take? Depends, of course. Yeah. Everyone can imagine that it's depending on several facts like network, traffic, performance of the systems, and so on. But approximately, you can calculate normally 1 million documents a day. So that gives you like an idea of how long it could take.
Okay, next question. Is it possible to use TIA also for SAP generic object services? At the moment, we use SAP Content Server.
Yes, definitely. As those, that's just another use case from my point of view, like business documents, SAP DMS. They all use a repository at the end, or can use a repository at the end, and via that they are running archive link. So yes, the short answer, we could replace the SAP Content Server with our TIA Content Server in this case.
Okay, okay, it's very interesting. Does the architecture allow mixed access via different SAP interfaces?
Yes, definitely. So if the question is access on the same data, it's yes. But if not, so if every system is standalone using their own data, you can run with SAP system A, archive link, with B, CMS, with C, ILM. Everything's possible. It's different applications, same storage configuration.
Okay. Then there's one more question. I just take a look at the clock. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. Can your app also be used with other hyperscalers or on-premise?
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned in the on the slides, that the basis for running our application typically in the cloud is like a container, and this is the standard. So we see container-based services on AWS, we see it on Google, and so it's replaceable. We also have implemented the storage systems there. In AWS, it would be, instead of Azure Container Storage, it would be S3-based storage. So this is also possible. And even on-premise, you can run it in a classical way, I would say, like with web containers or web archives and web server and runtime, but also with containers. And on storage level, you can pick the storage you want, like file system based whatsoever, but also object based on-premise storage. So yes.
So I think we have enough time for 2 more questions, but please note every question that is remaining we will answer via mail afterwards, so no worries. Okay, that's interesting. Do I have to commit to CMIS or archive link? So do I have to choose?
Talking about SAP S/4HANA, you have to choose on the repository level. So on each logical archive, you can whether run archive link or CMS, but that's the level on you have to decide. So it could even be a mixture within one SAP system, actually, which is not very common, but it would be possible technically. So no, actually, you don't have to decide. So you can run all workflows with archive link still, but maybe think of setting up new workflows or new repositories, new use cases on CMIS. This could be an advantage in the future. So I don't know, we don't know currently, but archive link could be end of life one day. So even in the cloud, it's not available anymore. So it's good to think about CMIS in the future. or even now if you want to be prepared for the future. Yeah.
Okay, and then last but not least, can scanning scenarios be mapped without restriction, even in combination with filling systems via the CMIS and archive link interfaces?
Okay. I don't know if I get it right, but scanning is supported more or less independent from the interface, and the processes are based in the SAP system from my point of view. So this would be the contact line scanning to the archive, linking in SAP, and running those billing workflows, whatsoever workflows in the SAP afterwards. So from my point of view, typically set up with many of our projects.
Mm-hmm. So there are a few questions remaining, but I think we will leave it by this with a glance on the clock. And as I said before, remaining questions will be answered via mail afterwards. And also, we are very happy to receive your feedback to this webinar. It was our first public English webinar, so feel free to give us a lot of feedback. And we hope you enjoyed this webinar and see you next time. As I mentioned, in the next 2 to 3 months, there will be a webinar to SharePoint. So yeah, we are happy to see you again. Have a nice day. All the best. And
Bye-bye.